have you, and we're getting close to the end of the session. And we're happy to have Rogers here. She's a writer and watercolor painter who divides her life between Eureka and Guanajuato. I may have massacred that again. Mexico. So we're happy to have her here on Zoom. She is back in Eureka with us. So she's going to get this nice hot weather that's coming later this week. We hope it's quite a change because we had 4 inches of rain in the last 48 hours or so, which was kind of shocking, which was wonderful. We won't have to water for a significant number of days. Louisa, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you, Marina. Hi, everybody. It's just wonderful to see family members, friends, local and beyond, international, and people I've never met before. So I'm so glad to have you all here. I find it quite astonishing that in my early 70s, I'm painting, because as a child, there were no artistic influences in my life that I can think of. I come from a very interesting, diverse Southern family. I had very smart parents. My mother was a writer, so it's not totally surprising that there was a writing influence in my life. But really, looking back, as far back as I could think of, on neither side of my family were there any artistic influences. That was not the gift that we had. So here I am, 72 years old, and I'm painting. It's quite amazing. As I said, I did want to be a writer, and indeed I became a writer, and it's not been my primary profession. Most of my working life, I was a business trainer, but I always freelanced, and now that I'm not training anymore, I do a lot of writing. But it was something that was much more natural to me than art. I took an art history class in college that with a very vibrant and lively professor. And I did become interested just by that alone. And I think I started going to galleries. And I was taken, of course, as most college students are, I think, with surrealism and with impressionism. And so my favorite, I'm going to share a couple of my favorite art galleries in the world. One is one that isn't that well known, I don't think, but it's called the Courtauld. I didn't write it down. It's Courtauld, as in court, AULD, Institute in London. And it's a small but very interesting, with a lot of different it's a modern art museum, meaning not modern, but as of, the 19th century. And then another of my favorite museums is the Phillips Art Gallery in Washington, D.C., where I grew up some of my time in my junior high years. I lived there. I didn't go there in junior high because I wasn't interested in art, but later during college years when I was visiting my parents, I'd go to the Phillips. It's a great museum. So I did develop a kind of interest in art through that one art history class. And then back in the 80s, I took a watercolor class, and I remember I painted the house, my sister's house, and gave it to her as a birthday present or something. But I mean, I took the class and everything, but nothing really stuck. I didn't do any art for another 20 years. And then here in Eureka, actually, I was talking to a friend of mine, and somehow or other, she said, well, let's go down to, she lived in McKinleyville. She said, let's go down to this some sort of art store. I don't remember the name of it. And, she said, I think you should buy a sketchbook. So I bought a sketchbook, and I did spend several years playing around with colored pencil, dry pastel, collage, anything that was dry. Even though I had done watercolor, I was intimidated by wet. Anything with water just sort of made me nervous. So I played around with everything else, and I did keep a watercolor a sketchbook. I filled up 2 or 3 sketchbooks over the years. And there's a friend of mine who was going to come today. I don't see her yet. But anyway, she and I used to get together every week or so. And she was an incredible collage artist. She created these beautiful, fascinating, dramatic collages. And we would get together and eat tortilla chips and play around in our sketchbooks. So that's kind of what I was doing. Up until maybe 2008. I did take occasional classes through OLLI with various OLLI art teachers and through the other community ed resources in Eureka, very intermittently. On the chat group, and before I forget, if you have questions or whatever, feel free to put them on the chat or ask me. We will have time later when I'm done to ask live questions as well. On the chat list, I have a list of some of my favorite artists who I've been my mentors. And back in the sketchbook era, I followed a wonderful artist named Judy Wise. Wise, indeed, she is wise. Who's out of Oregon. I loved her. And then there was another artist who I also still follow called Marianne Moss, who's actually an elementary school teacher in LA, but she keeps a sketchbook, and various others that I followed. Anyway, then there was a long gap until maybe about 5 years ago. I think then I took I took several self-paced classes with a monk. She's a Benedictine monk, and she's American, but she lives in Galway, Ireland. Her name is Christine Walters Paintner. I can put it up later. I forgot to include her. And she, as part of this class, she had us painting mandalas. So I would sort of, with some sort of, not exactly crayon, there's a kind of crayon that you can get wet. It's sort of a grown-up crayon. And I painted these mandalas, and that kind of got me back in a little bit into doing something with my hands. Then, it's funnily odd, about 2 years ago, a former colleague of mine who lives in Mexico, but not in the town, myself and several people here live, town that's hard to pronounce. It's called Guanajuato. But this former colleague lives in San Miguel, not far away, which is better known. And her husband died. And I was not particularly close to her husband, although we knew each other. But he died quite young, and he died of pancreatic cancer, which is a disease that has been the cause of deaths in my family. And somehow I just decided to paint. I painted something that when I found out about his death that week, I painted in my sketchbook, and I even acknowledged it on the page. Then about a week later, because I had a birthday. This is like 2 years ago. Now, all my life as a writer from the get-go, as soon as Barry and I started living together, Barry's my husband, I insisted on my own room or space. It wasn't always a full room, depending on the size of the place. Sometimes it was a nook, but I had to have my own, a writer, or, a room of her own. The only thing is Barry also insisted he needed his own room. I never expected that. And so in the first place we lived together, we actually sacrificed a bedroom for this, and we would roll up our foam mattress in the living room and roll it down again in the evening so that we could each have our own room. So I find it interesting that I always required a room for writing, but it wasn't until my birthday that Barry said to me, this is 2 years ago, he said, how about I create a little space for you so that you can have your art, and it can be a dedicated space. I said, great. Marina, will you show the first photograph, please? So for my birthday, he created this piece of, basically, he got a piece of plywood and he put it between two walls. and painted it. And as soon as Marina, anyway, there it is. I think we're going to see it in a minute. Yeah. So this is in Old Town Eureka. This is where my first studio was. And as my friend, I have a friend in Mendocino who is one of my serious artist friends. As she says when I visit her, she says, "Oh, let's go make a mess." So we go make a mess in her studio. And so I can make a mess here and I can just leave it up all the time. And it's wonderful. Overnight, I even leave the little bowls of water. Right now they're dry, but right at the moment, often, I mean, in the picture they're dry, but frequently I leave the water in them, which isn't really very smart in earthquake country, but whatever. Anyway, Marina, will you show the second photo, please? And the reason what I did when we went down to Guanajuato, we have a room that is not that much in use. Right now, it looks very neat. I must have just put everything together then. So that is my studio in Mexico. And by the way, that floor is also in our bank. It's not a very common floor now, that kind of floor, but I like it. It was very common, I think, about 40 years ago in Mexico. Anyway, so I've got a dedicated space. And this is, I'd say, I'm going to share some suggestions and recommendations I have for anybody who thinks they might want to pursue more art. Find a dedicated space. It can be just a surface, like the one in Eureka is not as expansive as this one. It can be a surface, but it's so much easier. I found that my output tripled as soon as I had a place where I didn't have to put everything away, get it all out, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that's why I don't even bother emptying the little bowls of water. It's just one less thing I have to do. So that's what I recommend. Get yourself a dedicated space. Okay. The next thing I want to say is every book I read says something like every art book, they say, I'm going to recommend a limited set of supplies. Well, then their quote limited is actually not limited. Marina, we can go back to me now. It's not limited. It's long and extended and intimidating. Now, I'm trying to make this as relevant to whatever art you're interested in. So some of the kinds of things I have are not going to apply to all of you. But I love to travel and I like to be portable and I like to be lightweight, or I don't want to accumulate a lot of junk. That's the last thing I want to do. So I do keep it fairly limited. What I have in my case is I have paints and I have both, I have both this type and I have a couple of palettes. I have something that I learned from a Facebook group I'm in, which is listed on the chat group, called Posca pens. These are very cool. I have several pencils. I have erasers and water bowls and all that stuff. And then I have this, which is called a stump. And what that does is it shades and it blurs and smudges. So it makes it look like it creates a sense of dimension, which is very helpful. And that's it. I try not to collect a lot. I'm sorry, I forgot. I also have ink pens. I have some different thickness pens of various types. And I try to keep it really portable. We have a camper van when we're in California and we go away in the camper van. I want to have everything in my little black bag, and everything fits in the black bag and it just goes. That's it. So I believe in keeping it simple as much as possible. Can you please do the next photo, Marina, number 3? Now, this was one of the first paintings I ever posted on Facebook. I got a lot of compliments for it. I was very pleased with it because it kind of looks like what I think it's supposed to look like, a fence, you know. It's supposed to look like dunes. I don't know if the green looks that much like dunes, but people liked it, and that matters. I like that a lot, I have to admit. I wish I didn't. Facebook is both good news and bad news. I get a lot of support, but on the other hand, I would like to be less attached to how much people like it. Lots of luck. But anyway, I got the fence idea from a book I bought at a used bookstore. And all it is black ink, kind of twisting this way and that way, as are the birds. One thing I'm often amazed by is how little it takes sometimes. Just the merest smidgen of ink or paint can convey a symbol or something that looks like what it's supposed to look like. It often does not take very much. So I copy. And I believe this is one of the most valuable things I've ever been able to do. Can we go on to the next painting? I copy from all my mentors. Now, this one, I don't think this is particularly a copy. This is more I'm going to jump to another concept, the concept of symmetry versus asymmetry. I do not worry about things being symmetrical. Nature is not symmetrical. Our bodies are not symmetrical. Architecture is barely symmetrical. I mean, it starts off symmetrical, but you know, the earth moves, floors shift. That's why tables wobble. So I don't worry about symmetrical. As you can see, this, whatever it is, it's sort of an arch. It's not actually very, it's not exactly even. And it's fine with me. That represents, I'd been to Bulgaria. Barry and I went to Bulgaria, and I was very struck by some of the Orthodox churches, and that kind of came from there. I also include some what are called Zen tangles, which are like these sort of leaves up here on the right and on the left. Not sorry, not the leaves on the left. The leaves on the right are Zentangles. The little box on the left is a Zentangle. The fish at the bottom is sort of a Zentangle. And there's a local artist who has taught Zentangles. Her name is Louise Bacon Ogden. She's a OLLI instructor. Can we go on to the next one? Anyway, back to copying. I'm a big believer in copying. This is an abstract of Guanajuato. And in Guanajuato, there are various places in town where they're standing, sort of, I don't know quite what to call them. They're standing things with a picture of some aspect of Guanajuato that is an abstract of it. And this is modeled after one of those. This is Guanajuato after the rainy season. Right now, before the rainy season, it doesn't look this green. Now, a watercolor like this, I got a lot of positive feedback on this. This is one of my early ones. If you look at it, it's not that difficult to paint something like this because, you know, again, it's not particularly symmetrical. Guanajuato really does have this hodgepodge kind of look, you know, and it's not that difficult. And I love doing it. It was really fun. So that was a copy. I have struggled to try to create a face that looks like a face. I don't mean to actually paint someone I know, but just to have a face that looks like a real face. And it's only recently, by copying some of Judy Wise, the woman I mentioned earlier, some of her faces, that I think I'm approximating better faces than I was. Can we go on to the next one? Marina, thank you. So when I copy, I don't copy exactly. I just take something and then I play with it. So, for example, this leg, it was supposed to be, there was another leg originally. It was from a little sketchbook I saw. There was something online. And I think this was on the online version, there was a little bit of a foot somewhere else, so you could see there was another leg. But again, I copied it. And I just like these sort of weird paintings where there's a curtain that sort of leading into nowhere and a lamp and a chair, a plant. It's just a bit of Zentangle there. Zentangle, those gray and white things in the middle that are, it's called sacred geometry, Zentangle. Now that I look at it, the shoe is looking the opposite way. It really should go, to the left rather than to the right. But I didn't really think about that at the time. Okay, the next one, please. So that, again, I can't quite remember if that was started off with a copy. It probably was, because I almost never, truthfully, I'm not very original. I don't start with something that I imagine in my own head. I start with something else, a photograph. I go around looking at things and I take pictures of things all the time. And then I bring it back and use it as a base. And the good thing about taking pictures of things is that if you have it on your phone, you can zoom in and really see closely, like back to faces. If I'm doing a face, and one of Judy Wise's faces, I can go right in and just see closely, how did she do the eyes? Where does the eyelid live compared to the eyebrow? That kind of thing. This is one of several of my paintings that I turned into greeting cards, which I'm having available for sale both in Eureka, Arcata, which is for those of you who don't live here nearby, and also in Guanajuato. Sadly, they're not doing that well, but oh well. Okay, next, please. Oh, sometimes I just have fun. This is like out of my childhood. I remember my mother had a sewing machine, and I took home arts in junior high school, and I didn't make a dress, but I did make an apron. I did make a dress, but I didn't make one of these. Anyway, for those of you who grew up as long ago as I did, you'll recognize this kind of thing. Thanks. Next one, please. Now, I actually have I have a print in our living room called Elephant in Love. It was painted by a Chinese man, and I saw it in a kind of art shop in the Bay Area. And I didn't buy it, but years later, I thought about it, and I found him online, and I wrote him and asked him if he still had a copy. And anyway, he did. Now, the one he painted is yellow, but again, that was my start. And I just painted these two elephants along with some Zentangles and threw them in. So I really believe that finding artists you like and following them, whether they're online or wherever you find them, copying them is the way to learn. And if an artist is local, I have asked them if I could come see them and visit with them and see their studio. I just did this a couple of months with a wonderful artist who I think he's just so interesting. And then I go meet them. And now what I've also started doing is I interview local artists and write them up, describe their art and write it up as an interview for our local arts newspaper. So that's a nice way of blending my writing and my interest in art. But even if you don't do that, I think I have been very successful in in asking artists if I can come visit them and see their studios, and they've said yes. Plus, as you know, there's most communities have an open studios kind of weekend every so often, every year or two. Okay, can we go on to the next one? Okay, now on the list of my mentors is an artist named Laurie Doctor. I think she's somewhere in Missouri or something. And who knows? I have no idea how I found her. Half these people, half the mentors who are my mentors don't even know me. I just find them and kind of keep an eye on them. Now, Laurie Doctor, I did take a class from a couple of winters ago. She does a lot of letter forms. I mean, like this stuff we're doing where like the stuff on the bottom right, and you can't really tell what it is. She does a lot of not exactly calligraphy, but line work and letters and so on. And her retreats are extremely expensive. They're several $1,000s, plus you have to get to. She leads them in New Mexico. But during COVID, she did an online one and it was very inexpensive. So I took it. And this is a portion of a bigger piece. My paintings tend to be out of my sketchbook, so they're pretty small, although recently I've just begun enlarging and I've now gone to, it's about, it's a rectangle and it's probably the size of a table mat. But before that, my paintings were like trade paperback size and still are some of them. But this was a very big, it was like a big poster. Okay, next, please. Oh, I have fun with these kind of things. Practicing legs. I hid the hand because I'm not very good at hands, although that too is one I'm getting better at. This is one of the early ones. So again, you can see the rug is not actually very difficult to paint. That's not very difficult at all. And the leg wasn't that bad, but the arm is a little too skinny, I think. But anyway, it's just fun to play around with stuff. Thanks. Next one, please. Oh, I love this one. Now, the cat on the left is modeled after one by this artist I just mentioned, who I went to visit last fall, who I think is so brilliant. I love his art. That's his. Then it's a couple of buildings, again, not totally symmetrical. Some plants. Yeah, yeah, it's fun. I like it. Yeah. Another thing I recommend, we could go on to the next one, Marina, please. I use the internet a lot. Um, like I will say, look up, I'll Google draw simple cat. And people love cats. It turns out cats really sell. Everybody says, I want a cat. Birds are not good enough. It has to be a cat. So anyway, I'll look up something like draw simple cat. And there'll be a couple of cats, or I could, and now I actually bought a book on cats. So I've got a few other books, another source for cats. This one, I'm a big fan of the painter Bonnard, Bonnard, Pierre, French painter from, I don't know, kind of Impressionism. And he had a beautiful, years ago, I remember seeing this beautiful balcony kind of dining table, people eating dinner. I don't remember how many people there were. It was more about the dinner. So I just kind of remembered that. Plus, there's a book I have from years ago called Paint Happy. And she had something sort of like this. So I just throw it all in together and had fun with it. Yeah, I love color. As one of my mentors, I forgot to put her on the list. She's actually in San Miguel. Her name is Marty McGinnis. As she says, color is my candy. And I'm with her. Okay, the next one, please. Oh, yeah. This is, I think, another one I borrowed from Judy Wise. She had something like this years ago in a teapot, and I just took the idea and played with it myself. Yeah. One thing I do, and I do this with writing as well as with painting, and it really helps. If I'm working on an article, I might have it in Word or something, but I'll put it in Google Docs, and then I leave my laptop to put it on my phone, or it's on my phone anyway, and I go take a walk. I sit down somewhere and reread the article. I do this in Mexico, I do it in California, I do it wherever. And then on the docs, I can see things that I didn't see on the laptop. I do the exact same thing with drawing and painting. I look at it in a different perspective, an iPad or my phone, and suddenly I see things that I did not see when I was right there on the painting. The only difference is that when I take a piece of art on a walk, I don't actually make the edits on the walk because I don't have all my tools. Okay, next one, please. This is another one I borrowed. I belong to two Facebook groups. They're listed. One is called Upbeat Art Group, and the other one is called Naive Art Extraordinaire. And someone did trees sort of like this. So I just took the idea and played around with it, changed it, but played around with it. A few birds floating around. I love painting clouds, and I like them to be dark and brooding. I like that kind of cloud. You can see that one of the domes is a little off kilter. Okay, next, please. Oh, yeah. Another, you can see these brooding clouds. So I threw in a couple of cats because people like cats so much. There's a hand over on the left that I was pretty happy with. I mean, I know the thumb is maybe on the other side of whatever that blue thing is, but I thought the hand was pretty good relatively. And the reason the woman is facing the other way is that I don't do faces very well, and I didn't want to deal with the face. So Barry gives me my titles. He's very good at titles. He called this one Straps. We can go to the next one, please. Oh yeah, this is copy. This I think I came up with the title myself, Hope in a Difficult Time. And my sister said sometimes the title really helps frame the painting. And I agreed with her. So this was taken from modeled after another painting that looked to me, it looked like stained glass, and that's the goal. It is supposed to look like stained glass. Yeah. Okay, the next one, please. I kind of like my paintings to sort of tell a story or imply a sort of sense of something. So, here's this woman looking out at, birds are flying around. You you don't really see the sea, but you get the sense that there's a sea there. I kind of like that idea of an implied story. That's called To the Lighthouse. That was Barry's title. And again, the bench is a little off, but not to me, not that bad. It looks reasonable. Okay, next. Yes, I was in Guanajuato Very happy to be in Guanajuato. Down in November, right around Thanksgiving. And I was happy to be there, but sometimes I post something that's going on with me emotionally, mentally. I missed my paddleboard, so I painted it. Sometimes in Guanajuato, I miss trees because Guanajuato is quite desert, and there are not as many trees as I would like. So I paint trees because I miss them, you know. Thank you. Next one, please. I was pretty happy with this face, pretty happy with it. And Barry gave me the title, I See You. I was happy with the cat on the branch too. Okay, the next one. Now, this one, I called it Pussy Portal. And somebody on Facebook said to me, you might want to change the title, just saying. I said, no, the title was very intentional. I knew exactly what I was doing. I like alliteration. Anyway, I pointed out to a friend of mine, another one of my serious artist friends. I have several. She's an artist in Mexico. I said, you know, I knew that the portal, I love portals. I love windows, doors, arches, any of that. And I said, I know that it's a little bit kind of hanging. It's not really grounded. It's not anchored. And she said, oh, I didn't even notice. And then I thought, well, if she's a serious artist, i.e., professional, paid, that kind of thing. I thought, well, I'm just not going to worry about it. Yeah, I love portals. They're great. Okay, next one, please. This one, another arch, notice. Yeah. This one, again, I found something that this came out of from that book I mentioned called Paint Happy. I didn't put it in the resource list, but you can look it up. Yeah, it was fun. I called this Spring Has Sprung. Yeah. So I don't obsess over rules and I don't worry about rules. I know that, for example, there's this whole rule about perspective. There's a 3-point perspective, something like that. But that's not my goal. Maybe one day I will want to learn perspective. Right now, I'm motivated by faces. That's what I want to do. And in this case, you could kind of see a line. If you look closely at the right side of her neck, you can see a line. And the reason is I didn't like the original face. I couldn't fix it at that point. And so what I did was I cut it out and I did another face and I pasted or taped that in. So my goal at the moment, I'm very interested in faces and hands. I like to practice working on hands, and that's what I care about. Perspective, maybe down the road, maybe not. I'm not really interested in the rules. Okay, the next one, please. No, yeah, it was about a week before I was going to leave Guanajuato, and I was starting to feel very bittersweet because I wasn't really ready to leave. And yet Barry had left about a week earlier. I was wanting to see him within a week, but I felt sad. So again, this is very much what Guanajuato looks like. And in fact, that church is the church that you see from our kitchen window. There is a tree over on this side of that, or actually it's on the other side of the church, but it's there. And the houses in the background are exactly what Guanajuato looks like. You don't always see a cat, but yeah. So again, I paint what goes on in my emotional state. Okay, next. I think there's one more. Is there not?
Yeah, so I'm realizing there's no 24, but there are two 25s.
All right. Well, let's go with one and then another, unless we've seen one of them.
Okay.
And this is the last one I painted. Yeah, those steps, I really love working on steps, and I did the steps several times before I was happy with them. This too came from, or at least the concept came from some Fauvism art I saw online. And I just played around with it and did the colors. Love the colors. And of course, I added a cat, as ever. So another recommendation I have is that I don't think you should overthink it. And I say speak from my do as I say, not as I do, because I do overthink it. I don't overthink when I'm painting. When I'm painting, I just do it. But what I seem to do is I take an awfully long time before I start drawing, trying to decide what I want to draw. And I wander around my various photos and, sort of, I spend way too much time doing that. I should just start with something, just pick something and go. But I don't. That's what I have done so far. Once I start painting, I'm in a state of really in a state of bliss. I mean, it's not exactly meditation because there are problems or there are decisions. It's like, for example, in this particular one, I felt there was an earlier blue and orange. I know this one. It was also blue and orange. You can't see. I'm in that little blue area between the two blue and orange fields. I decided there was too much orange. We had too much same coloredness. So I painted over some of it to create more contrast. So things like that come up. You have decisions to make, but they're very concrete. It's not like these life decisions that are so much more abstract, it seems like, in life than on the page. And I'm so happy when I'm painting. I just love it. And it's funny because I'm a very obsessive person when it comes to time. It drives Barry crazy. I know exactly what time it is. I wear a watch. He doesn't wear a watch. I know exactly how long things take. I lose track of time when I am painting. And I can be wandering around playing with my art for an hour or more. I have no sense of time, just having fun doing it. I don't feel that way about drawing. I'm not thrilled with drawing. I don't like it that much, but I understand, it's part of the process. So there are people who paint without drawing. I just went to a meetup, an online meetup with a muralist, although he wasn't doing murals. He was actually just drawing buildings, but he didn't draw. He didn't draw. He painted right from the get-go. But I don't think I'm there yet, or that's not my goal. So I would recommend trying not to overthink it. So let me run through my recommendations one more time. Create a dedicated space, however small it is. 2, don't go overboard with supplies. I think we live in an era where it's more is better it's so glossy and exciting to buy supplies, but really it's not. You don't really need much. I mean, just think of a kid with a piece of paper and some crayons. Copy. Anything you like, copy. Find mentors. And you can look at, again, on the chat group, I listed all the mentors I have, most of whom are on Facebook. And not only find mentors, if they're local, meet them if you can and go to their studios and see what they do and so on. Use the internet because it's a source for all sorts of information. Forget about symmetry. Don't be obsessed about rules and about following whatever the particular art form you're using. Don't worry about whether you're following the rule correctly. Just do whatever makes your heart sing. Change perspective. That is, take whatever you've got, take a picture of it, go somewhere else, walk around with it, and look at it later from another perspective. And don't overthink it. I'm just going to look at my own chat group for a minute, a chat list, and see if there's anything I want to say about them. Oops, where's my chat? I just lost it.
Dr. Elizabeth Cotton says, all your paintings, Louisa, all your artwork are delightful, so wonderfully whimsical. It's great today to see a variety of them all together with your telling the stories behind each. Much appreciation and applause. And Julie Fulkerson said, loving these. And Joanne Forn says, charming. And I'll say it's incredibly fun. I think you're totally in the zone when you're doing this. And it's quite a beautiful thing to be able to enter that and lose sense of time because time is irrelevant.
Yeah,
you're
well,
expressing
thank you
yourself
all.
in a wonderful way. They're just fun to look at.
Thank you. So let me just to say a couple things about the mentors on my list. Marianne Moss, oh, she's so fun. And she has a blog called Dispatch from A. She and her sister, who live in the Midwest, go on trips together. And so sometimes in California, sometimes in Europe. And so they post, they sketch together every day. She's very fun. Laurie Doctor, like I said, is the sort of not calligrapher, but the one who uses interesting lines and letters. Alison Woolerton, I love her. She's British and she does lots of buildings in lots and lots of towns, lots of townscapes, and none of them are symmetrical. They look great. They're all Alison, all these people are on Facebook. Mary Blocksma, I found her because she wrote an article called A Writer Learns to Paint. And then she has a book about, she spent a year on Lake Superior, I think it's Lake Superior, painting the ocean every day. Every day she painted the ocean. And she would paint a different, not the ocean, the lake. And she would paint a different perspective of the lake every single day. So it was a very cool, interesting approach to life, to painting. Samantha Dion Baker has written several books, Draw Your Day, Draw Your World, and Draw Your Adventure is coming up. Draw Your Adventure. It's not published yet. She's a Brooklyn artist. I don't know how I found her, and she does sketches of, she'll have a picture of her son's shoes because her son's shoes are sitting in the hallway of the house. And then she'll have a coffee cup, and then there'll be a little bit of writing. It's sort of like a journal. It's her journal of the day. And she's one of the artists I actually pay money on her Substack to kind of stay in touch with. And she has she was the one who hosted the artist who drew buildings, and I went to the meetup, the online meetup. So she's interesting. She just spent a week in Oaxaca. So let me see who else. Susan Bennerstrom, one of my early mentors. She's now a famous artist, and her pastel sell for, I don't know, lots of money. But I liked her years ago when I knew her in Bellingham, Washington, before she was famous. And she has a very unique style. You can find her on her, she's also on Facebook or in her website of the same name. And then I mentioned the two Facebook groups. It says Facebook native, but it's not native. It's meant to be naive art extraordinaire. And Dory Kentnor has a book. It's sort of multimedia. It's one of my favorites of books about, I think it's called Art Escapes. Just ways to play around, not all watercolor. They're just different, multimedia. So does anyone have any questions or any other things they want to bring up?
There's one comment, final comment. Love all your suggestions and enthusiasm
Thank you.
from Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly.
I wrote one too, but I don't know how to post it. Now it's disappeared.
Just hit enter.
You
Where
can
is
say it
it?
if you want.
Oh, that enter.
So, are some of you artists or would-be artists? I don't call myself an artist, by the way, but I do call myself a watercolor painter. The word artist just sounds a little highfalutin, but I'm a watercolor painter. Yeah, Mandy, what are you?
Well, I just want to say this has been very exciting. I am a retired finally. Took care of my folks for a long time. Mom has Alzheimer's and is in Georgia now, but I graduated HSU with an art degree in 07. And my grandma framed a picture of a crayon cat drawing when I was 4 that kind of encouraged me, I think. And I also used to live in Kansas City, and one of the best art museums in the world that I know of, and the best Asian art collection in the Western Hemisphere is the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. And I was a security guard when there was the Cartold exhibit there of post-impressionism, and interested in art. As a security guard, I always found one thing to keep a kid occupied so that they don't accidentally spin in circles and knock over a priceless something. And it was very interesting. I loved people visiting and telling me I must go to the Louvre someday because I'm poverty wages and that's not going to happen. But I enjoy getting to talk with people about artwork that I paid attention to and listen to all the docents that came through. And one of your drawings, and I was a watercolor, my favorite mentor was Bob Benson, and I took watercolors from him in 2000 at CR, and his mentor was Keith Crown, and I bought his book Keith Crown Watercolors, and one of your paintings in particular, and I can't remember which one, reminded me of Keith Crown's style.
Would you write these two people's names up on the chat? I don't know if we could spell them.
Sure. And because I did not see your chat link for some of your references. I'm hoping we get a handout after the fact of some of the things that you were suggesting. I took notes as fast as I can, and I'll maybe watch it again in archives. This was very exciting, and how exciting to see your lovely hair.
Well, I tell you what, I will write those recommendations down. The chat is right. I think you can see the chat, but I
couldn't find yours in looking at it, but I do things. I have ADHD that was recently diagnosed, and I can't track fast enough. So,
okay.
But I'm gonna put in Bob Benson is retired, and he's still in the area.
And who was his mentor?
I'm gonna and Keith Crown, and he also loved Morris Graves and was with Morris when he died, and he was a mentor also.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, I just want to say, Louisa, your your faces and everything have improved so much. It's such a testament to continually doing, like practicing painting, drawing every day or as often as you can. I'm kind of blown away. It's really, really a lot of progress.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Well, like I say, a dedicated space makes all the difference. It really does.
Yeah, I have a dedicated space too, and I'm so thankful for it. I wish that this had happened 2 days ago because we had a art festival in my backyard yesterday. And
Oh, really?
you guys will have to just keep an eye out for it. It's called the Sunkissed Art Festival, and it was our fourth time. And it was a lot of our local potters were involved. So it was just like creativity off the charts here in my yard yesterday in that little spot of sunshine we have. So I just want to thank you so much. And I also took an online class with Lori, Doctor, and
you
really,
did?
I might have been the one that told you about it. I'm not sure, but I don't know where I heard about her either, but I was so inspired, and I've been incorporating a lot of the calligraphy and writing in my ceramics and in my drawings. And it really has helped me loosen up a lot, which is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So,
I will definitely send OLLI a handout with the recommendations I mentioned and any names that I put up on the chat group, so you can look them up.
Yeah. And Laura says, thank you so much. This is inspiring. And Julie Fulkerson mentions, be sure to go to Joan Gold's show at the Morris Grave. She turned 90 recently and says this is her last show. Hope not, but this one is outstanding.
Good to know.
Hey, and where do you sell your cards?
Well, at Eureka, they're at the Eureka Co-op and at the Arcata Co-op. And there were some at Eureka Books, but I haven't checked to see if they're still there. So that's where they are. And in Mexico, they're at Fernando, that little shop right opposite the university
I'm not in
steps.
Mexico.
No, but you may not have been there. Some of the people here are in Mexico, and I have home in Mexico. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Ellie, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I'm in all the way in Lake Tahoe visiting my son. And I noticed that you were going to do this, and interesting enough, I've been doing a lot of watercolor with my 6-year-old granddaughter. And she's very creative, and my son has a degree from Humboldt State Fine Arts, so it's always been in my blood. But now that I'm retired, I have more time, and I've been really inspired in this area. They live in this beautiful area called Greenville, and it's full of lakes. Oh my gosh, it's just so inspiring. So this is a perfect place for me to. And I really love all the details, and thank you so much, because as teachers, we try to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you gave me the freedom to be happy. I love that, and I wrote it several times. Paint happy. I like that. So I'm gonna pass that on to my granddaughter. Thank you so much. I especially loved the very last painting. With the orange mountains and all that, and it's lovely. Thank you so much.
We miss you, Ellie. We miss you.
I know. I'll be back in the fall. I'll be back in the fall, and maybe do a conversational Spanish for everyone who wants to learn more Spanish. Yes. So you'll see.
Fantastic.
You'll see me in the fall, because I decided to stay in Eureka and just come and visit. Yes. So I have lots to tell you, but I'm glad I was able to connect today. I miss you. I miss everyone. Yes.
Well, we're glad you're back.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I would
Anybody
really
have any questions?
I just want to say I have a couple here. I've got my cousin Liz Colton, who is from Asheville, North Carolina currently. She was a diplomat and lived all over the world, a Peace Corps volunteer. And my cousin Mary Ridgway over here on the left lives in my father's hometown, Hartsville, South Carolina. And she's an excellent watercolor artist herself. So
nice. Yeah.
And Louisa, I would like to add something. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So when you were describing how you get into your art, that you think about it a long time and you come up with a plan, it was very interesting. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it must be genetic. That's the way I do about my writing. And also I teach diplomacy and all over the world for the United Nations. And I teach speech writing, one of the courses. And my recommendation always is you have to come up with your message first and make your plan in advance. But of course, some people don't do that. It doesn't matter. But it happened. I was thrilled when I heard you say that about your art.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think you need to teach diplomacy to a lot of the people here in the United States.
I'm
They
trying.
might get more done. How
I'm
about
try-
trying with Congress?
I'm trying. They
Right
don't want
on.
to hear.
Yes, we need to do a class on it.
Well, Luisa's father was a very distinguished diplomat all over the world. So he was my role model.
Nice. Wow.
Yes.
But
I will get in touch
I
with
agree.
you.
We need more diplomacy.
I think it'd be wonderful to
that's
have an
lovely.
OLLI talk on diplomacy. Would you be interested?
Sure. I do that all
Yes.
over.
I'll take it.
No, I think we'll all take it. We all could use it, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
we could all use it.
actually, just to add to dovetail into Louisa, I mean, what she's doing is in a way art diplomacy.
Yes.
She's using
Mm.
art
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Yes.
and she's talking about it, but it's bringing people together and
Mhm.
all of us
Yeah.
together. So I teach cultural diplomacy and art diplomacy among many
like
other
that.
things. So Louisa,
let's do
you're
a
doing
next.
diplomacy.
Well,
the
my
two of you-
email is janepwoodward@aol.com, and I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Let's put the two of you together to teach another class on art diplomacy.
Oh, that's a thought.
A class on
Yeah.
art diplomacy in the fall. Just saying.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
And I gotta add, the last conversation I had with my grandmother was over the phone, and I was telling her that I was taking this watercolor class now that I've moved out here, and she was in Arkansas, and she goes, "Watercolors? Well, I never took a class to learn how to paint. I just painted." And she was very good. So I have a little bit of genetic something in there.
That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Any other comments, questions from anybody? Oh, Bob Benson, my mentor, retired, you said, and Keith Crown was his mentor, Keith Crown Watercolors. Bob was with Morris Graves when he passed and came to class. And he came to class after that?
Yeah, he was really shooken, but he came and expressed and shared with us on that.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. It was really fun to share with you, and it was just really fun. This is the first time I've ever given this talk. So I've given lots of talks over the years, but not on this topic, always on business topics. So
Well
it was really
done.
fun to do
Well, it's
something
great.
much more.
It's great
Well
fun,
done.
and I want to thank you all for coming and invite you to come back next Monday because Michael Fields is going to talk about what's going on in theater today. And take a journey through the current theater world and ecology, find out why it is in danger, as well as some positive and possible paths forward. He's a character. If you don't know Michael, I mean, if you do, you know he's delightful. So, and
Thanks,
he's got
Jane.
his own theater company, and he's just great fun and has lots to share. So we'll hope to see you back on Monday. And meantime, Louisa, have a great time.
Great.
I appreciate
good
the
to see-
reminders.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye bye, everybody.
Keep doing it. Keep having fun.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.